what trade tools are available to address human rights?
Okay, so you can either expand trade, and you can do through incentives, or you can ban trade, and you can ban all trade from a particular country if you want its policymakers, or you can target trade measures at particular human beings, perpetrators of genocide, for example. But I think policymakers really need to think very long and hard about the trade policies that they choose to use when they want to provoke another country to change its behavior. But as you know, President Bush is considering going to China. Actually, he's accepted the invitation to go to China to watch the Olympics, which are going to be in Beijing this year. And a lot of activists don't want him to go because they don't want him to send a signal to China that China's own treatment of its citizens is okay, let alone its trade with Darfur. And as you probably know, that Steven Spielberg, the noted director, he has decided to quit his job advising the Chinese government regarding the spectacle of the Beijing Olympics. And he says he's doing so to protest China's behavior towards Sudan, a country it trades with a lot. It buys the bulk of Sudanese oil, and yet there's still genocide going on in Darfur. So, you know, when you go to the Olympics, that's essentially trade. That's an export for China when you travel to the Olympics. And so the question is that the right thing to do? Is that going to motivate, by stopping this trade, is that going to change the behavior of Chinese policymakers? Well, at the gut level, it does look like it is, because Spielberg, you know, explained what he was doing, you know, while that's just a director, clearly China recognizes it could do more to press Sudan. But on the other hand, people, whether they're children or adults or policymakers, respond to incentives better. So we need to look at that and say, are there ways that we can incentivize positive behavior? Let me give you another example. Right now, democratically controlled Congress has said, we don't really want to bring up a free trade agreement with Colombia. We're not a great fan of free trade agreements, number one. Number two, we don't want to reward Colombia because human rights labor leaders are killed in Colombia more than in any other country, and that country has tremendous rule of law problems, and we don't want to reward them. I agree with most members of Congress that I'm not a big fan of free trade agreements, but again, this is a country that's made incredible progress in improving the rule of law throughout its country. And again, I think we need to think long and hard as to whether or not we should use trade. Since we've negotiated this trade agreement, is now the time to approve it. And I think my own view is that you want to provide incentives to continue positive behavior. If we want to get the Colombian government to do more, I think we're more likely to get them to do more with the incentive of the trade agreement. The world is not black and white, but in general, we need to be very careful about it. I just want to take a step back and say, the United Nations recently said that we do have a responsibility to protect human rights of people in other countries. But you and I have very few things that we can do to get Sudan to change its behavior. Right? We can intervene, so that's force, as we did in Iraq. But that's pretty tough to do. So short of intervention, what tools do we have? Well, we have foreign aid, which is expensive, and we have trade, access to our own market. And so the question is, do we give that benefit, and how and when? And these are the things that I hope, upon reading this book, policymakers and the public will think about. Again, there's no easy answers, there's no black and white answers, and I certainly don't have the right answers or all the answers. My goal here is to get people thinking.